This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so Carl moved and Austin second to approve the minutes as presented. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, all opposed say nay. All right, so our minutes have been approved. Cheryl, do you have a financial report for us?
I do. Financial report as of May 29th, Planning Commission expenses, year-to-date $3,759.97, with a balance of $9,240.03. Planning Commission Secretary expenses, year-to-date $12,545.70, with a balance of $17,454.30.
Any questions for Cheryl? Not seeing anyone waving their hand. All those, do I have a motion to accept the financial report as presented?
I'll move the.
Okay, so Stephanie moved and who seconded? David? David seconded. All those in favor say aye.
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 Okay. All right. So, those opposed? Nah, no one. Okay, great. Staff, do you have anything you'd like to share with us today?
Chad, you're muted.
I was thinking you were going to go first.
Okay, I will.
All right. Ladies first.
All right. Two things I wanted to report on. The parks plan is off to a slow start, as you might have noticed. I think we're about 5% along our way, and I've got a pretty good outline of the plan, and I have some inventory work that's been finished of our existing park facilities, and some just overall formatting done. What I'm really waiting for is the Parks Advisory Committee to be appointed.
I thought it was appointed.
Not that I know of. I know we're getting close, but I've talked to the mayor a couple times and Chad, and I don't know they did something recently.
Yes. So during the last meeting, Matt talked about putting this committee together. He's got the list of people, and we'll be submitting those to you this week. Tomorrow.
To me?
Yeah, just so that you can have an idea who those are.
Good. Okay. Hooray. And that's really all I have to say about that right now. The second report I wanted to inform you of was you may recall the Clatsop County housing study, and we had a housing conversation, affordable housing, about a year ago, maybe, or less. And there's interest in developing the property. Well, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself here, but there were questions about that inventory and how accurate it was in terms of the fact that we had all this available land, and for the next, until the year 2037, we don't need any more lots. And there was, I talked to the chairwoman about it, president, about property around her area. She pointed some places out that shouldn't have been considered vacant. And we found a few other places that didn't look right. And meantime, if there's interest in any development to happen that may need property outside of our city limits, we would have to have evidence, better evidence than we have, I think, of how much vacant land we have to prove that we would need to expand our boundary. And so Chad and I went to the consultant who did that Clatsop County housing report, pulled out the Gearhart excerpt, and said, well, how did tell us how you did this, because we'd like to double check your figures. Well, it isn't quite that easy. And it was done more remotely than that I think that we're interested in. That's probably why there's some discrepancies. And so we've actually hired them and entered into a contract just a week or so ago to do a on-site Gearhart only buildable lands inventory and to find out really more accurately what we have and for how long that will be adequate for our growth needs. And that's just getting started. We're having our first meeting. The firm is Angelo Eaton Planning Group, and they did the Clatsop County report, so they have a good start on this. We're meeting next week by Zoom to get the program rolling. And they'll be using GIS data. They'll be identifying their methodology they used before and how it would better suit this case for the city. They'll be looking at property and parcel-specific revisions to the Clatsop County list. I want to make sure they work with LCDC so that we can provide that to the state to update our own inventory, and it can become, an update to our comp plan that's much more accurate today. And, the rest of them, I'm just looking at the program here, just working through that data and getting it to snuff, and then coming to the Planning Commission and the City Council so that you can see it, question it, and, add to anything we need. And then go ahead and probably add a few amendments to the comp plan to explain where we are now with our housing inventory. And it'll go a long way for any future development ideas and proposals and questions. We get people coming in saying there's no lots available and at least for sale or not big enough. And so this will give us a big step forward from very outdated stuff in our own plan and more accurate data that was in the Clatsop County housing data plan. So any questions on that? It's probably just going to be like 3 months maybe of work, which you will see. You will be the first to see. Okay.
Would they be able to make, will we be able to see what the data that they're looking at or the protocols they're looking at like beforehand, or are they kind of just going with what the information that they have and then No.
I mean, no, they're not going just with the information they have because we don't think it's accurate. And we have some new data already provided by Steve Olstead, and some builders in town that's really more site specific. And we'll look at their original methodology and we'll try and bring it more local. We will bring it more local and more accurate so we can get those numbers right.
Okay.
Chad?
Thank you, Carol and commissioners. And just to piggyback a little bit on this, we did, the county spent $100,000 on the plan to get to the point where we're at. The city of Gearhart put in $10,000 towards that. And the neat thing about the way we're doing this now by piggybacking on their plan is we're spending probably a lot less money to accomplish this task now that we have the lion's share of the information. Now we're going to refine it and make it better. So I think it's been a good step.
Chad, what are you talking about? The firehouse?
No, I'm talking about the what Carol was just talking about, the buildable land.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, again, it's an efficient way to do this because we're just piggybacking on the information the county already took care of.
Oh, okay.
Fire station update. Again, we're still working to really put together our numbers and to make sure that they're accurate, and we're very, very close now. We've still got some work to do. We're also pretty well finished with the geology of the site and ready to present that. The next step in order to take care of a lot of questions and issues around town and present much more clarity to the situation is last Tuesday, the city council authorized Peter Watts, the city attorney, and I to initiate something called an ORS, or Oregon Revised Statute 33710, which is a judicial validation proceeding. What we're doing is we're going to determine through a judge whether a firehouse can be constructed at the High Point location. There's a lot of conversations about whether or not the Palisades Homeowners Association is able to prevent that from happening. And there's a lot of questions of whether or not the Palisades Homeowners Association is still a valid homeowners association with valid CCNRs. So what we're going to do is go to a judge, Clatsop Circuit Court, and it's kind of a mother may I. We're going to ask the judge to make this determination, and once we have that determination, it's binding. The determination itself, the procedure for it, is we will have been instructed to file notices with Clatsop County, and then the other party, the homeowners association, may elect to documents, and then we'll have that conversation, and then the judge will make a decision on whether or not we can build in that location easily or not. So with that next step taken care of, it'll be much more clear for the people of Deerheart to be able to vote on the upcoming election when we do finally file. So any questions about that portion?
I have a question. So you're saying that the Deerheart Homeowners Association is opposed to the High Point location?
I'm sorry if I said Deerheart Homeowners Association. I intended to say Palisades Homeowners Association.
You didn't say it. You just said the Homeowners Association. And that's what I was trying to figure out. Okay, so it's Palisades.
Very important. The people of Deerheart who filled out all the surveys are in favor of the High Point station, but the Palisades Homeowners Association as a group is not. So we just wanted to make sure we get through this process to clarify what our abilities are going to be.
Thank you.
There's
Any
one
other
on
questions out there? Go ahead, David.
I was just going to say there's one on every bus.
Yes. So that's the fire station update. We just want to make sure we have that all together and it's rock solid, and we're really confident in the information that we have, and we'll be presenting that as soon as we get through this. Just a quick informational, the county in the building that's going around in the county it's quite busy. A lot of building permits in all jurisdictions. A lot of land is being used up, and our building officials are able to just keep up. So that's good. The real estate agents also report that there's been a lot of good activity in the market. Housing prices are going up a little bit. And so that's all I have on that, unless there's some questions.
Chad, they're all coming from Florida and California and Arizona, New Mexico.
No.
It's a pretty special town, you know, and you folks are a big part of that. So thank you. So the county also is moving their public works. They're working on a project now to where they're moving all of their public works facilities, equipment, people, offices out of the tsunami inundation zone. They've been talking about an area behind us in the Crown Camp area, and then hardening a lot of the roads that are between Crown Camp and other parts of the county over the mountains. So there'll be some more information coming about that.
Did you say county public works, Chad?
I said county, yes. Which is great for us also, because having them a little closer is always beneficial.
So that is referring to the infrastructure up there near the Astoria Yacht Club.
Say that again, the Astoria what?
Astoria Yacht Club. Up there on Youngs Bay.
I'm not familiar with that site. This is the old Crown Zellerback camp.
No, I mean the area they're moving out of is in Astoria. It's in buildings out there by the Astoria Yacht Club.
Yeah, and by the cement mixing plant.
Correct. So that's a tsunami inundation zone?
Correct. And I don't know what they're going to do with that property, but that's their thinking, is to try to get the critical infrastructure out of the tsunami inundation zone. So, you know, everybody's starting to think about these things. Cannon Beach County, Warrenton, Deer Heart, Seaside. So there's been a lot of good work done on that.
Did they purchase that from Nikes? No, did they?
I don't have any details other than what I said, so I'm out of good information on that one. Cheryl and I have been working on tsunami inundation zone signage for Deer Heart, and you're going to see some increase in signage and directionals going around town. And we're doing that through some grants and other methods to get some signs. And the last thing to report is Matt has also come up with an idea and is appointing a small business committee. And this will dovetail into what we're going to talk about a little bit later this evening. But his idea is to put a group of business professionals that are either retired, successful, been there, done that, or have you know, run businesses similar to what's in Gearhart together to help shepherd people through the Gearhart process. And not exclusively, but for example, if somebody has a business and they want to come into the C1 zone, this group of people will get together and also help them go through that process, understand our zoning, understand our comp plan, and try to help them figure out a way to bring a business in. So it's another positive aspect to the work that you've done already with these draft C1, I guess, revisions, if you'd call it that. So that's a pretty forward-thinking move on Mayor Brown, I think. So congratulate him on that. And at this moment, that's all I have to report.
Okay, thank you, Chad. Any questions for Chad? Anything else? Okay, seeing nothing. Next on the agenda is commissioners. Do we have any commissioners that want to address a concern or anything they'd like to say at this point? No David, no Austin, no Stephanie, Carl, Harry. I have some things. Ta-da. I had mentioned before that using a consent agenda to approve the financial report rather than, I know Cheryl likes reading off the numbers a lot, but some of us end up writing them down and some of us, you know, try to figure it out. If we could just like have her include the financials with the agenda, then we wouldn't need to approve it.
That sounds good to me. I don't always get it that far in advance, but I would be very happy to send it with your packet.
Good.
Yeah.
Good idea.
Yeah, Cheryl and I will definitely work on that. I think with this meeting being on the second Thursday of the month, it gives us an opportunity to do it most of the time. Some of the time we won't be able to. We'll give it a good try next month, maybe. What are the dates next month?
Well, you could, I mean, if you didn't have it done by the time the packet went out, of course, you could always just email it out. And then if someone has a specific question, then we could cover it. But I'm just thinking of a way to kind of eliminate some stuff. Shorten the meetings.
Yeah, it looks like August will work for us to give that a shot.
Okay. I had another question for you, and I'll direct this at Chad. There's signs going down to the beach that runs along by Deerheart that says, like, no camping. But that's not enforced. Who do I go to ask about that?
Sure. So it's an interesting way, and Jeff Bowman can better explain this than I, but there are some issues with the way that law is written. But to clarify, the beaches are State Highway number 1. They're both under Oregon Park and Recreation, their rangers, Oregon State Police, and then the Clatsop County Sheriff's Office. They're the ones to enforce most of that.
Okay, so is it enforced? Is that's what's happening? I mean, there were huge groups. I'm talking like 40 people groups down there over the 4th of July, and the amount of trash we picked up off the beach, fireworks is appalling.
Yeah, the fireworks show was a little bigger than normal on our beach, and that may have been because the municipality is cutting out their programs. When we were out on the beach quite extensively over the 4th of July period, both with the police during the day, the fire department during the day and the evening, driving, we kind of noticed that there was about 2/3 the normal amount of people on the beach. The fireworks show,
Yeah.
again, was huge, though. People bought some expensive stuff. The next morning, there was quite a bit on the beach, but a group of volunteers, including myself and some of my family and others, we went down and picked up quite a bit. And there was a lot less than last year, but still there was quite a bit. So that's kind of the report that I have to give. But Justin with Oregon Park and Recreation Department is probably the best guy to answer that question. And we can maybe put it on an agenda item for next time, but I would contact him at Fort Stevens.
All right. No problem. I know. Yes, I would agree. There was less trash this year, but the much larger groups with, as my husband had problems with building their own outhouses in the middle of the beach. He had a real problem with that. So, yeah. So we next have the goals list. Is there anything we need to fix, look at?
I had a question with the, since it's on the goals list, the update buildable land inventory that we just contracted out.
Yeah.
Is demographic data going to be included in that?
Yes, I think it already is in the Clatsop County study that we looked at. I'll have to double check.
Yeah,
But
there was some demographic information. Then we'll be able to update it soon after with the most recent census.
and the census, right? And you know, that's but what you made me think of is maybe we should put that on the goals list that we're doing it because it came out of. Oh no, it's right there.
Yeah, it's right there.
And that's been there for a long time.
Yeah.
Yes.
I didn't even think I was actually going to be able to check off another goal.
I think it should be in process.
Yeah, I think it's a in process and good idea.
Move it.
Move it. Thank you. It's right there in front of my face.
I have a question on the goals list if you have time.
Yeah.
In item number 2, there are 2 number 1 priorities. One is evaluate code enforcement and nuisance abatement effectiveness. And the other one is determine need for commercial design review standards. Are those 2 areas of detail that we would benefit from having someone who's been involved in that more than we have come visit us? Such as evaluating code enforcement and nuisance abatement effectiveness. I don't have much of a vocabulary about that. And determine the need for commercial design review standards. I've got a way huge opinion about that, but I don't know how to address that really. Would the commission like to do something like we did with the Cannon Beach Planner to talk about formula businesses? Okay, I hear crickets.
Well, I'm trying to give a stab at this. You know, Commissioner Graff has raised the enforcement issue to a number 1. I think everybody was interested in it. And I hope he might weigh in here, but you know, that is a city, that's a city job and they do it. And I guess the question is, what's not working well and what, if anything, needs to be changed on that topic. And the other one, you know, we come in and out of and have not really, well, we haven't gotten to it as a number one yet. I think now is the parks plan, and this BLI inventory has risen to the surface. And then there's COVID and these kind of meetings. We really haven't. I know there's interest in design standards, but you know, we struggled with the C1 zone standard. There are problems with that being quite vague, which we might talk about tonight. Well, that's what I have to respond to right now.
And those are very good comments, Carol. So I guess my question arises from evaluating code enforcement and nuisance abatement. You know, is that really our bailiwick rather than city law enforcement or city council?
I can answer that, Carol.
Yeah. Good.
So I think that, you know, some people have, you know, issues with fences or with lot lines, building too close to lot lines, or maybe building types. So there is quite a bit in code enforcement that has to do with zoning. You know, weeds is in zoning. Well, actually, no, that's in nuisance. But so I'm actually the code enforcement officer for the zone code side of things. So I evaluate all the plans. I go over and work with Mark Bryan with our building codes. And then when we get a complaint, I handle them as they come up. But we're not necessarily going and looking for too many problems. We wait to hear from them, or if we see something that's just outright and not right, we take care of it. So if we wanted to have a good discussion about this, we put it on a future agenda item to discuss what the problems are. Maybe it's a work session that would be better than a planning commission meeting, because that way we could have more of a one-on-one conversation about what those items are. Then I can go back and study, you know, what we could do to maybe work on them, and then come back to you folks. So we're just not clear what that means, but I think we could have some good conversations if you'd like.
Does that answer your question? Okay. All right. Anything else? So, Carol will make some adjustments to the goals list, right?
Yeah, Cheryl, you're there. The BLI is a number one that should be moved down to in process.
Okay.
And that's it for now. Unless you want to change the priorities of the other ones that you have, those two that you mentioned, David, do you think, are they a priority?
They certainly have a number one status on the list here, but to me, number one, I think we should rethink that number one priority for those two items. But that's just me. The other comment I had to share with the commission in terms of enforcement of ordinances or zoning issues or definition questions or permitted use questions would be that if the planning commission presents verbiage to the city council that is accepted and brought into the ordinances, and there in the future a question comes to the city manager that the city manager cannot answer due to vagueness or confusion or conflict or whatever, one would think that the city manager at that point cannot interpret the decisions that the planning commission made, and they might want to refer applicants or questioners directly to the planning commission rather than jumping ahead to the city manager.
I can respond to that if you like, Carol.
Yeah.
Typically what I do is if it's not clear, I say no. And then that way, if they decide that they want to appeal, they can do that. But before I get there, I usually go through Cheryl and Carol, and we kind of have discussions about these things, and they help, with that process. But if it's just not clear and I'm thinking that it's just not well defined, then I'll say no, and then they will appeal my decision and come to you.
So you're from Cannon Beach, right?
Well, they're even more restrictive at some things, but no, actually, I've lived here for about 24 years.
Okay, thanks, Chad.
You're welcome, David. Good question.
David, anything else?
I have something before we move on.
Yeah.
Commercial design and review on the highway, I think still needs to be a number one. It got on there after we ended up with Dollar General. And recently we have another mini mart up there. And I think there's a lot of potential for concern in that zone.
So what are you wanting, Stephanie?
I just want it left as it is as a number one.
Oh, okay. All right. No, I think it's going to stay in number one. I think David just wanted to check, clarify.
Okay. Thank you.
And how about,
That's a
sorry.
very good point, Stephanie. Thank you.
Yeah, and I knew you felt that way too. But do you feel like the code enforcement and nuisance abatement should stay number one?
Maybe Terry could address that. That was Terry's concern, I believe.
Yeah, I think it is a number one. I mean, I would like to leave it as a number one. And I was going to work on this before the COVID struck, and in a future meeting, the next one or one after, what I intended to do is to go through and kind of identify what I see as problem areas that we then could discuss those areas. So I would like to leave it as a number one.
Okay,
Okay.
that answers that.
So, and I think
All right.
this is Chad here. I think a way to look at this is we could look at what's on our in-process file. And right now we've got 4 items because we just added one tonight. Kind of make a determination on what the bandwidth is for staff, and then decide whether or not to take the most important number one, because we have a few of them now, and then place it back into the in-process. That would be a good way for kind of the planning commission to look at that, to say, all right, yeah, we've got 3 or 4 things going on, but we could slide something in. Now, what's the most important? And that could be a conversation during the goals list conversation.
Along that line, Chad, because the city council and Matt is appointing this committee to do or has whatever, to develop the Parks and Trails Master Plan grant, does that still belong on our goals list?
Yes.
You're not done with it. Yeah, you've still got some work to do. We got a lot of meetings to have, and then a lot of planning commission meetings yet to go through before it even gets to the city council.
So it'll come back to us, or we'll see some stuff then?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And city staff is
That's
working.
what I didn't understand.
Yeah, the thing about this is this is a staff number one priority, but it's developing a draft and then coming to you and having workshops for citywide, and like we do every time we make a plan amendment or code amendment. You get the first shot at the first hearing is before the commission.
Okay. Answer my question.
Chad, are you able to share with us who is on that committee?
Yeah, I'll see if I can find the list here real quick, but probably not at this meeting, but I can forward it to you Monday.
Okay, thank you.
Excellent. All right, anything else? Okay. Correspondence. Do we have any correspondence, Cheryl?
No correspondence.
Okay. Seems like with all the time people have, they could write you letters. Do we have any visitors' comments? I see Tom is with us.
Yeah, I would like to say something.
Okay.
Tom East 292 Woodland Avenue, Gerard. Hey, I have noticed, and I'm not sure if it's for the Planning Commission, but I think part of it is, I have noticed that U-Haul is now, again, slowly moving their trucks out to the highway. And I have no problem with that. But if they're allowed to do that, then maybe we should make it official that they can do that. And if not, can we fine them? Because it seems like whenever they're told to move them back, they move them back. And then a month or two later, they move a couple out and then move a couple more out. And then it's back to loading all of them out by the highway again. Chad, I think that was for you.
Feels like it.
Sorry.
No worries. So yeah, it was requested. I can't remember who was the planning commissioner that back then. Anyway, it was requested that they wouldn't have vehicles up there, and they says, yeah, okay, we could push them back, but that was never put into the conditional use at all. So there is no requirement for them to keep back. The only requirement is if they were blocking traffic, and so far they're not doing that. So
Okay.
that was just a promise made, but not put down on the paper, unfortunately.
Okay, no problem.
You know, it's funny you bring that up because I came home tonight and I saw those trucks out there. I couldn't believe it. It's like a truck parking lot, and they're all almost hanging into the highway.
Yeah, I noticed it too.
Something that attracted my attention was reviewing the latest version of the draft C1 zone is prohibited uses for the sale or holding out for sale or allowing others to sell or hold or sit for sale more than one new or used vehicle. Now, what it does not say in there is holding out for sale or for rent. So I suppose one way to control that would be to add for rent to that section 3435, item number 1. It's not permitted to sell or rent more than one vehicle at a time. Now that way, U-Haul could have their truck out there with another sign in addition to the sign on the stand. So
I don't know, but I won't be able to go at 6:45.
They're not in C1 zone though.
correct, that's C2 zone, isn't it?
Yeah, but it is
Yeah.
also that same statement, I believe, is in the C2 zone as well. But if you made that change, I believe that makes them an existing use. Is that
Yeah.
correct?
Right.
Okay.
Yes. That wasn't the standard at the time they had their approval, and so it doesn't apply.
Got it.
So they could park their trucks out there with signage on them and get away with that then?
Yes,
Why is that?
just like Budget Blinds does across the way, or the Fultano's catering truck or delivery vehicle, or any other vehicle that's got logos on it. I guess I can throw out Encore Dance Studio. They can park their vehicles out front in an allowed parking space and use that as part of their business.
Okay, well, that's good to know. Okay, that's all I have.
There's a huge difference between one vehicle and half a dozen.
Not as defined by our code.
Well, I thank Tom for bringing that up, and maybe Chad, when he's driving home some night, he could just kind of say, stop in friendly conversation that when you try any of those places, whether you're at Bud's or the U-Haul, and you try to pull out, you run a real good risk getting hit because people park right along the highway there. And you can maybe hint to U-Haul.
Yeah, sure. It could come from me. It could also come from other citizens of Gerhard if they're concerned. That might be helpful. But I'd be happy to talk to them.
Actually, I would suggest we send to Richard Oslo.
He is effective.
All right. We don't have any public hearings. So we're now to the meat of our whole conversation. The reason for having this meeting is unfinished business, the proposed C1 zone amendment. I don't know if Carol's going to address this or Chad's going to address this, but one of you are.
Both of us.
Okay.
You want me to start, Ms. Carroll?
You start and I'll probably butt in.
Thank you. I'd appreciate that. Any opportunity you get. All right. So thank you, Planning Commission and city staff really through this process. You folks put a draft together of a C1 text, and I've got that right. I don't have that here. Stand by a second. Sorry, we're going through version vertigo here. I'm so excited to start talking that I forgot to set this up. All right, right off of our website, these 3 pages here that you folks were looking at. And those of you that do not have video access, this is the section 3.4 C1 neighborhood commercial zone. And this is the draft that you folks put together. It included adding a few things to try to make the zone maybe a little bit more friendly to business, because people just don't like those vacant spaces, which is completely understandable. So adding things like a food store, deli, coffee shop, juice bar, drug store, gift shop, variety store as an outright use. Those were added in. Arts and craft gallery and studio. Businesses and professional offices, garden store. Financial institutions already been kind of in there, but personal business services, hairstyling, spa, printing, or other similar services, and such. And then another neat idea was the sidewalk cafe seating or sales subject to administrative permit. So Matt wanted to take a look at this along with Carol and I and try to kind of look at what it is that you did and see how it fit within the plan, which it does. But we also kind of took an interesting look at this from the standpoint of some of the definitions that we had. So what we've got going on right now is that the C1 zone is outdated, and I think we all agree on that. There's also some gray areas, making it difficult for city staff to take care of some of these issues that we have. Can we do this? Can we not do this? So in order to remove the gray areas and to kind of simplify the process and to honor the work that you did, Matt came up with this draft and then called Carol and I, and we were working on it just very recently because we've all been pretty busy, but sorry that it took so long. And then we came up with this draft summary, kind of a version 3 for you to look at. This is just a discussion tonight. This is just a draft, and this is just the July 9th edition of this. Before we bring it formally in front of the Planning Commission again, we're going to have to do some noticing and things. So if you can see the document that I had online, but if not, I forwarded it to the Planning Commissioners a little bit ago. In the C1 zone, the following uses and accessory uses are permitted outright. There's 6 items. You folks see those 6 items?
Chad, what we're seeing is page 2.
Yeah, and we're looking at page 2 of the 11. There we go. There we go.
Okay. I was needing to see a different look.
All right, so now we can see the draft summary version 3 C1 zone.
Now, can I butt in right here with you, Chad?
Yeah, please.
Well, I just want to say there's 3 pages of the C1 zone, and the only part that we've been struggling with, I guess, at the staff level and the council level, are the uses and the permitted, conditional, and prohibited. And so we're not getting into any of the other aspects of it. I think it's just trying to get a better control or understanding of the uses, which you did the same darn thing. And what we found, and the mayor found too, is that the list that you came up with for outright permitted uses And now we have the draft in front of us, but is really not changing very much. And I think that he likes the way the direction you were going, but he's trying to kind of put a vision around it, and the comp plan and the Gerhardt style and the residential nature of this zone as compared to the highway, and really kind of step back and think about not only outdated things, but how do we make what we have more modern? Right? I mean, we know we don't want to have a soda fountain anymore. That one was easy. And you and we all ended up kind of putting this detailed list together to take into account the uses that are there so that they become legal, like the garden store and some of the financial and real estate and office uses. And I think what is, if you look at those uses now and you look at the definitions in our existing code, which admittedly we really didn't look at those, the offices are pretty well defined, just like you did: personal, business, services, financial institution, professional offices, and so the definition has those things, and you see in number 6 for offices already includes banks, business administration office, and I think financial. We added financial, I think. Well, that's the same, banks. Okay, so we could go back to offices as it was and as proposed in this draft for that reason. And so I'm going to let you pop in here too, but I wanted to let the commission know that with his interest in putting this commercial downtown or commercial committee, business committee together, we want to create something that's successful, right? I mean, we want to encourage business, but we want to encourage business that's going to work. And it's kind of happening right before our eyes with Pacific Way. I mean, maybe COVID is temporary, but with Pops as well, she's created something that has a variety of things going on in it. And now Pacific Way is a little different. They have kind of a variety of things going on that adapting not only to the current crisis, but I think is also a more modern way that we eat and so on. So, so defining it, and this is what you'll see in the definitions that were created here, is to try and define what that modern use is, instead of trying to list the items, which is never enough. We can't ever cover everything. So I think he wants this to be a successful end result, and simpler, just simple, but also kind of targeted by the way the definitions are written. That's why the page 2 here is so important. Targeted, because like it's an office in McMinnville is going to be one thing, or a neighborhood store is going to be one thing in McMinnville than it is in Gerhardt. So we go ahead and define it instead of trying to make it both open to business but not clear and not easy to relay to a property owner, but to also be something that will stay there and serve the needs of the community. So, Chad, you want to pick up again?
We can start here with first, like the neighborhood grocery market. So that was number 1 that we had, and that was also in your draft. Excuse me. Under neighborhood market, where we were at, eating, drinking.
Well, retail trade. I mean, see, the food store.
Drug store, gift shop, and variety store. Number 4 right there. So what was we came up with was neighborhood grocery market. I'm going to take you down to the new definition. Okay, I'll let you catch up with this. So the new definition is a modern community market or co-op, which primarily sells food and sundries and may offer fresh produce, fresh meat, fresh seafood, selection of beer and wine, a variety of personal and household items, and other grocery items. May also include a deli, a bakery, ice cream, ready-made or made-to-order meals, or beverages to go, salad bar, soups, other similar takeout items. So it kind of brings in a lot of the ideas that you have. May offer beer growlers to go, wine tasting. Wine tasting would be in-house. And limited on-premise beer and wine alcohol consumption where appropriate, no LCC has been license have been obtained. Limited indoor and outdoor and sidewalk seating available. Limited outdoor sidewalk seating subject to an administrative permit. Franchise or mini-mart style businesses are not permitted. So it took a lot of your ideas and combined it into all sorts of possibilities, maybe making it easier for a business to come in with kind of a multiple use idea. So number 2, barber and beauty shop stayed the same. Number 3, no, we didn't need to change that, did we? Number 3 is arts and crafts gallery and studio. So I'm going to take you down to the new definition again.
And that's also in there now. In the draft, Planning Commission draft has arts and crafts gallery.
Yep. A retail store which primarily sells and displays art may also include space for art classes or space for artists to work. I think that's pretty good. The next is home occupations. They stay the same. Government facility limited to post offices is similar.
Question.
Carl, did you have a question?
Yeah, the idea of government spaces being limited in C1. What about City Hall and places like that?
That is already allowed in the public and semi-public zone, to which City Hall and the fire station is already in. So there's another zone that's appropriate for those.
Okay, thank you.
And then offices. So there's the definition, I think that's already in place. We didn't put it in there again. The current.
Yeah, the current, go ahead. Do you have it or I have it?
You've got it in front of you. Go ahead. Oh, I got it here. Offices, which includes, and this is the current definition, so this still remains good, includes banks, savings and loan, insurance and professional, private commercial business enterprise, which provides professional administrative related activities such as banking, insurance, medical and other professional services, and management services. So what that helps do, I'll go back to this, is offices helps combine number 8 and 9 for what you folks did in the C1 zone draft that you worked on. So we kind of took those ideas that you had and then just changed the definitions a little bit. I guess this would be a good time to pause to see if there's any questions.
Well, what I see in front of me here, Chad, it looks like you kind of streamlined that 11 item list to 6 items that pretty well covers the 11 item list, which would meet the mayor's idea of modernizing.
Right.
I think it's pretty clean. And I think that the definition change makes it pretty clear. And I think it gives some wiggle room, and that was your intention.
Can I ask, now that I look at this, so the conditional use has, so what is different is you had a variety store and a gift shop as a outright use, and this version moves it to a conditional use with a definition, because Chad was really concerned about all the potential variety of store items that somebody might come forth with. Like, I don't know, what are some of the examples? A bong selling shop?
Oh, yeah, adult entertainment, bong, smoke shop, things like that wouldn't really fit to the residents of Deerheart. It may be, for others, but this helps it become more convenient for what we have. So for example, number 2, variety stores. I'm going to take you down to the definition, which already includes home and garden items and antiques. So I'll highlight this. So the variety store is a neighborhood or community retail store or gift shop providing a variety of household, including home and garden items, antiques, etc. Personal use items for sale, including apparel. Limited food sales are allowed for takeout as long as it's not the primary business. Kind of gives it a little bit of wiggle room. This may also include coffee, tea, baked goods made off premise, ice cream and similar items, limited outdoor sidewalk seating subject to an administrative permit.
So by the way, right?
Yes.
It's where an operator is trying to make it and has a variety of things. And I went in there to get a coffee because the line was too long elsewhere. And I ended up buying some cars and some lotion and something else that I wouldn't have gone in there specifically to buy if I hadn't gone in for coffee.
And then they added some prohibited uses.
Before we,
You got to go back to neighborhood cafe.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, that's important.
What happened to utility lines or manufactured dwellings when you're building something? Are those no longer permitted?
No, those need to go back in. We were just focusing on the substance here, and there's just some things missing, and we were reluctant to even give you this because we didn't have this meeting until 2 hours before your meeting. So it needs to be cleaned up, and that the intent is to do that after we've gotten your initial feedback here tonight and bring it in August.
Okay. My other concerns are neighborhood grocery market, which primarily sells food and sundries. How are you going to tell that primarily what they're selling, or they're actually selling more of other stuff?
A good question. Chad, can you roll down to neighborhood grocery market? So was primarily like more than 50% or?
That would be my interpretation. I don't think we need to be any more clear than that unless you can find a loophole.
Well, there was my loophole. But primarily, and okay, it says primarily sells food and sundries, but doesn't say I could be selling more of other stuff.
Yeah, let's say you divide the store into 100s, and you have 2 100s being food and sundries, and then the other 98, I don't know. Okay, we'll take that into account and push it around. It may or may not to be updated. I'll play with that with Carol, Cheryl, and see what we can come up with.
Okay, and my last concern has to be, and what I think I heard you say is concern about writing these such that businesses would be successful. There's this, it sounded like there was a concern that a business might go in, get permitted and everything, but you want to make sure that they be successful. That's way beyond any zoning, whether a business is successful.
Maybe that they have the opportunity to be successful.
Well, it's not written in. I think it's more the theme of trying to figure out what's there now, what's contemporary, and what are the demands. And it appears to be what you see, the ones that are open and busy are the ones that have a variety of things going on. And they're kind of unusual.
But, you know, if you have an arts and crafts gallery and studio, and if 3 other entities want to open arts and crafts galleries, are you going to restrict them because you're going to say, oh, we've already got 2, we don't need a 3rd one, or something like that?
That's a good question. And no, the way it's written as an outright use, you could not control the number. Only if it was a conditional use would you have that question of, do we need any more?
And can you legally stop it?
No, but then I think sort of reality sets in. Is the one that we do have is, well.
Well, actually, you could look at it this way. The outright uses, we can have, I guess, 5 neighborhood grocery markets and 6 barbers and some 3 post offices. But as far as neighborhood cafe, restaurant, variety stores, those are going to be conditional uses. And that still has the need definition, which could be as simple as, is there already one of these? Is there already a restaurant? And then you can make the decision that we already have a restaurant, and that is a finding.
Right. And don't forget how small this area is. What are there, like 13 properties? Go ahead, Carl.
Yeah, the only comment that I like what you guys have done in the 2 hours before us. The only comment that I've got goes back to the idea of looking at successfuls, because the biggest problem you're going to have in the C1 zone, if you try to lock it down too tight, you're going to have vacant storefronts, and you're going to have multiple vacant storefronts, and that you don't need that in your Gerhardt the Village.
I think we all agree on that, and again, keeping in mind we should loosen it up a little bit, and that's why I think this is a good start with what you've done and then how we've organized it. And it hasn't been just the last 3 hours we've been working on this. It's been longer than that, but we finally had the meeting 3 hours ago, 4 hours ago now.
And
So yeah, that's
agree.
a good filter.
I had Chad and Carol, I had one comment on variety store. The very last line in variety store.
In the definition?
Yes.
Okay.
Limited outdoor sidewalk seating subject to administrative permit. I was wondering if we should add limited outdoor sidewalk seating and sales. Because what if somebody was putting their actual merchandise out on the sidewalk to sell it?
Right now, my interpretation would be outside sales would not be permitted.
Right.
Would that fly outside the list of definitions as well? Just trying to think and make it more enforceable for you if we were trying to limit outdoor sales. Because we've all seen places that take over the sidewalk in front of their shop, and you have to weave your way through. Some places, like in Astoria, they actually take over parking spaces in front of their shop.
Well, actually, you're thinking of a new thing, a new definition, part of the definition here, maybe.
Well, actually, I'm thinking limited outdoor sidewalk seating and sales.
Or are you thinking no outdoor sales?
Oh, no, I'm just saying limited. But then that's an awfully big word too. So anyway, I was just hoping that your little group would think about that a little bit as you're working further through these definitions. But so far, Carl, you've done a very good job of this so far.
We will take sales into account before the next meeting.
That's all I was looking for.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, where did I leave off here?
So back to conditional uses now. I think we need to jump into neighborhood cafe restaurant.
Okay, so thank you. So we've got the standards section 8.0505, which is in there now already. Let's just familiarize ourselves with that.
That's conditional use permits, and that's, right, oh yeah. If
Thank
you,
you.
that's where it says, 10 PM limitations on number of seats. Sorry. Showing the need. No, go ahead, Chad.
Oh, I was just going to say, I was going to race you to it to see if I could beat you again.
Okay, that's where the conditional use criteria. A public need exists for the use at the proposed location. The following factors are considered in determining need, and that would be availability of similar uses, availability of other appropriately zoned locations, particularly those not giving call for a conditional use approval, and availability of other suitably zoned sites for the use. That's the first criterion. Second one is the neighborhood cafe shall be in operation during a minimum of 11 calendar year. The neighborhood cafe shall be closed by 10 PM. And finally, the neighborhood cafe, if located in a new structure, shall provide off-street parking spaces in the proportion of 1 space per 200 square feet of floor area, plus 1 space per employee. Yikes, that conflicts with the parking section where we said it's not required downtown, but I'll
Yeah.
figure that out later.
Okay, we'll take a look at that. We'll make a note of that.
Yeah.
All right. So the definition for neighborhood cafe and restaurant, I'll bring you down there. I'll highlight this. So a business devoted primarily to the serving of prepared food to the public where food is consumed on the premises, while customers are seated at tables and having no more than 1,300 square feet of seating area. Note that the amount of tables have been taken out of that calculation. It's just been made now to 1,300 square feet of seating area, whereas before that, I think it was 40 seats. Food and beverage items may also be ordered and sold for takeout. Service may include alcohol sales on the premise or off premise to go where appropriate, and Oregon OLCC licenses have been obtained. Limited outdoor sidewalk seating subject to administrative permit. There is nothing in here about having a bar. It specifically calls out customers are seated at tables. Any questions about that?
I'm sitting here thinking, and I'm watching other people's faces, and I know that you're telling us that you put this together in the last couple of hours, and we're seeing some glitches, and as you're reading through things and everything, but we don't have that necessarily in front of us, so it's very difficult to follow.
Yeah.
Even though we all have some familiarity with it. Would this not be better served, I'm only speaking for myself, to put this together so you've got all your pieces and then we could see it all in one piece rather than seeing chunks?
Sure.
Yeah.
But I wanted to kind of warm you up to the idea before the next meeting. That's our intention for the August meeting. And our apologies for not having it to you. We did email it out not too long ago, so it is in your email box if you want to refer to it, but you didn't have a chance to really get comfortable with it. But because of everything that's been going on and how difficult it has been to put together some meetings, we just barely got to this. So we wanted to familiarize you.
I understand. It's just me personally. I'm having problems just following it all. And I do have it, your email printed out here.
It's not just you, Virginia. I've having trouble following along because even in the packet that I got yesterday, what appears to be the old C1 that we didn't revise. So I don't even have the revised one that we done in front of me as well. So comparing those two to this is kind of difficult.
What? You didn't get the, your last draft, 11, 14, 19?
Wasn't sent out to us.
The one that set out to us still has soda fountains on it. So
Yeah, we needed both in there. That doesn't make any sense. Sorry.
Yeah.
Well, we knew this was going to be tough. We throwing this at you tonight, and we just decided let's try it. We'll give you a little sort of sense, and I knew this would be difficult.
I like what you guys did here. I'm also curious. We sent that C1 out to the council, and I'm wondering, it just Matt and you, Chad and Carol going through. Has the city council seen this at all? The one that we sent out already, is this just a interpretation of what we've already sent out? No.
So
Is there any feedback from the council on what we sent out at all?
help me remember, I believe the council saw through a work session that we did with them, the draft text amendments that we did. Is that correct?
And then we revised it based on their comments, and then we finalized it. We've gone through a lot of this stuff that you guys are talking about, and I felt like just seeing these definitions, I felt we were trying to get away from something like that because we were trying to keep it a little bit more open, yet, limited to, formula foods, drive-ins, stuff that we didn't really want to see in that downtown zone. And I felt like we spent a lot of time over all of this. And so just having this come back at us is kind of a little bit shocking.
Well, you're right. It's been drawn out longer with lots of big gaps of time in between. I think, the real issue is the market and the cafe, I think, Chad, and the variety store, of trying to figure out how to make it both open, more current, more, so we don't have storefronts to close up, but also to make sure we're not making it too open and continuing to reflect the original ideas weren't that bad. In this residential neighborhood, in this Deerheart town, that's not going to be seaside, and it's not going to be Cannon Beach, and it's not going to be a tourist town. So how do we, that's what we're doing. It helps.
I know that, Carol, and I felt like we really talked through a lot of that stuff during our meetings. So it's just, and I agree with, I like everything that's in these definitions. Obviously, this is really what we do want to see. But I felt like we talked through a lot of that stuff, and we kind of came, based on the legality of it, and people coming back at us. So I don't know. It's tough to portray that. It's tough to portray what we actually talked through in just simplified forms. And I understand that the council and other people, when they see that, it's difficult to, go back to the conversations that we had. But
well, and Austin, if I might, I think that's one of the reasons that we're doing what we're doing. What I've got right up on the screen right now that I got right off the website that's in there is the proposed, the Planning Commission draft C1 zone per 11/14/19. So that was some time ago. Yeah. And when we had the discussion with the city council, they were concerned, as well as staff was concerned, with some of the things, such as having things just like gift shop, the variety store, in the outright uses. It still wasn't very clear. So before we go and finish the public hearings, because that's our next step, is to go into public hearings with the Planning Commission, we wanted to make sure we had this robust conversation. And it sounds like we're starting to come to a pretty good agreement. And I think that moving forward, these changes will go fairly smoothly with some tweaks as we propose them to you. So now we're going to put this all together and come back at you, if everything looks good, in the August and then move this forward with public hearings, and then make those changes, and then it goes to city council, and we can make these changes sooner than later for the businesses.
I would suggest we move this forward rather than delay any further, and refrain from putting the perfect out to hold up good. It's not perfect, but I think it's good enough to move forward.
The way it is,
Yes.
the 11-14-19 draft.
As defined by the version 3 dated 7/09/2020 for discussion.
Oh. Okay.
Like I say, I don't want perfect to get in the way of accomplishing something good.
So we're getting some mixed messages. I think Austin's saying he wants to go with where you left off in November, and you're saying you'd like to see these modifications put into your next version dated now.
So there's our choices. And they're both, I think they're both reasonable choices.
Well, I honestly don't think they're too far apart, but I think the definitions are different. The definitions are a different approach, and it was an approach to try and kind of grasp the difference between Gearhart and typical coast towns in what they allow, but still have something that's going to work.
Well, what I'm just trying to say too is that, like what Virginia brought up, is it's tough to see this with what we proposed.
Yeah.
And so what I would like to see is what you guys have here inserted into how it fits what we proposed, and then just see it as one unit.
Right. Agreed.
I like everything that's on here on what you guys did.
Okay.
But I want to see it in what we propose and how it fits and how we can, you know, because we've had these discussions about a lot of these things, and if it didn't fit before, or we had the discussion about it before, and why is it now added in, or if it's not added in, you know, that's that sort of a thing. It's just tough to see both of them separate for me.
Okay. Well, we knew this was ambitious. We threw it at you anyway. Sorry.
Well, my closing comment on this would be, I'm always going to defer to the future of Gearhart, which is more defined by Austin than me.
Mm-hmm. Ditto.
He's going to be living a lot longer than I am.
Stephanie, do you have any input?
Oh, you're muted, Stephanie.
I just saw that. No, I was reading down further. I really like the whole list of prohibited uses, because those, I agree with Austin, we talked about in length, most of those.
Yes, and those are the same. What was added was manufacturing in the event that somebody tried to do a brewery.
Right.
Gambling.
I thought we were overruled on that with the OLCC.
Yeah, we might be if we ever went to court. That's kind of where we are right now. And we added adult shops. And I think, you know, there's a few things missing that you had, but that was not on purpose.
Yeah.
Driving.
I think really simplified and kind of cleaned up and made it really readable, the things that we did have. So I'm okay with this.
Yeah, well, it won't look so bad when it's all put in its place.
We're gonna put this together, as talking about Austin, put all the little things that are missing in there, and then give you another shot here in August.
Great. Can we just have it really in advance next time around?
Yeah, absolutely. We're sorry about that.
We're not having any more meetings about this. This will give us a month to clean, or a couple of weeks to clean it up, and then to get it to you well in advance. And that's what we've been waiting for, driving for. It just didn't happen. So.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, I have a couple of comments on the prohibited uses. and Stephanie brought them up, but number 7, manufacturing facility, seems to be in conflict with the definition on the next page.
Whereabouts?
Well, it's prohibiting it on the first page, and then on the second page, it's allowing it.
That's a definition.
It's a definition.
Right.
Well, so I think the definition's trying to, in case somebody says, well, I'm not a manufacturing facility, so you should be able to allow my proposal. And then the definition narrows down what it could mean.
So when they decide that they want to put in, let's say they have a variety store and they want to make candy, it wouldn't be allowed because we are prohibiting manufacturing facilities. And the definition of that is a part of a business in conjunction with a permitted use where the creation of products on site through industrial process takes place that may have an impact on local utilities and the neighborhood in general, including fermentation, distilling, and fabrication. So it stops people from putting in a distillery. It stops people from making the candy on site, which could be injurious to the area. And the reason why this is a more sensitive area, as you all know, is the C1 zone buffers residential.
Chad, Pops used to make fabulous fudge and they made it right there on site.
Well, that is because they have also gone more for the neighborhood cafe restaurant.
Say that again?
So that's because they're a neighborhood cafe restaurant. And that's a business which is a definition that's allowable and the primary serving and prepared food to the public.
Got it.
So they're not going to be a gift shop to make candles. I don't know why that would be a bad thing, but you know, who knows?
Anything else, Stephanie?
Yeah, one other thing I was reading down here, number 3, drive-in restaurant formula use. Did we ever define what formula use is?
Yes, it's in your draft 1114. I'm so sick you didn't get the draft. That was meant to be in the packet. 1114. Where?
Okay. And it just hasn't made it into this version 3.
Right, page 3. There it is. The bottom of.
I see it. And will that eventually be over into the final version?
Yeah, well, it'll go into the definitions section, which, you know, all these definitions are in the front of the code.
Okay.
I don't know, somehow it sure makes it easier when they're right next to in the zoning section, but that's the way it works.
I also feel like the wording for number 9, natural franchise, retail, grocery, or family of food chains. I think formula, in the definition that I remember, Formula Foods covers franchise, retail, and groceries. So
yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah.
I agree. I made that same note. That we can use what we have. Where is it? Which was drive-in restaurant formula use or mobile food vending wagons is what you prohibited. So that'll stay as it is, and we just have to patch this thing together so it's complete. There it is.
Okay, anything else, Stephanie?
No, thank you.
Okay, how about Carl? Carl, do you have anything?
No, I recommend staff continue in incorporating this stuff from the July 9th edition into the May 14th edition, and we'll review it in the August.
Okay. Is Russ with us?
I don't
Russ
think so.
join us?
I don't think Russ made it.
Oh, okay. Russ is not here. Then all the commissioners are not here. Sorry about that. Terry, do you have something to say?
Yes, I'm here.
You want to put in your 2 cents?
Hey, I agree with what Carl said. Nostin, I agree.
Okay. Okay. So that's all of us. You now know where we're at. Do you need further action, Chad or Carol?
No, I think we've got good direction from the group. I really appreciate this. It's been helpful.
Yeah,
Okay.
ditto.
All right. So we will revisit this with a complete thing that we can all look at, because I will tell you, reading the microscopic print on the screen is just a wee bit difficult for us old people. Okay, so we don't have any new business. Do we have any more concerns from the commission? All right. So it is 7:37. I adjourn the meeting. Thank you for everyone for attending, and have a good rest of July.
Thank you.
Whoa.
See everybody.